Hello. For those who are viewing, I have an old Army compatriot of mine, Dathan Benton. This guy and I go way back. We've seen each other at our most highest level of camaraderie, just brotherly, impassioned. And we kind of separated, went different ways, and yet found a way to stay together in the sense of like keeping touch, not that we hang out. Like I'm in Utah. I think he'll describe where he's from. I haven't, right? This is uncut, unvarnished. I literally just reached out to this guy. I had this idea. I feel like I'm following my own divine inspiration. It seems like he's there as well. And I think this is going to be a bit of a celebration of humanity within a pandemic. And hopefully that's means something to you. Um, I don't know what it is, if it does, but I'd certainly like to celebrate it with you if it does. I'm so stern, so angry. Urgh. I should have shaved. This is so on the spot. We'll see. I need my mustache to come out. I'm not convinced that I should cover my whole top lip. I'm not sure. And I see these guys with these giant, like, wool stashes. I don't know if I can pull that off. I don't know if I can grow that. Alrighty. What's up, man? So, you and I, let's kind of recap the last few minutes. You and I just kind of caught back up. It's, been maybe what, a year or so. We kind of just had a chat, not all that dissimilar from this. Oh, well, he's not even connected to audio yet. Severe editing needed. There you go. Can you hear me? You're muted. You're muted. Unmute. Unmute.
I've never used Zoom before.
There you go. All right, perfect. Well, you
Yeah.
know what, dude? You're doing better than a lot of the people that I interview on a daily
Well,
basis, man.
my kids are experts because they did a whole school year with it.
Well, man, like they're also like they're born with it, man. And
Oh yeah,
when you have to learn and that's a tool of your survival, well, of course you're gonna be better at it, right? And this is kind of human
oh,
evolution.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm like my mom is 60 something years old and she can barely unlock her cell phone. Meanwhile, my when my
Yeah.
when my daughter was 2.5, she was able to download games to it.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's pretty
Oh yeah,
incredible.
absolutely. It's not an analog world anymore.
Nope. All right, so let's take a quick step back.
Mhm.
So I reached out to you. I had this, I saw that you got hacked. Sounds like a bummer of a time, right? Maybe some people got caught up. In the idea of getting caught up, though, there's also the idea of like being inspired. I saw that, hadn't seen you in a while. I was inspired to reach out.
I'm gonna
I've
go
had
off
these.
camera just for a second.
Well, okay, so you can go off camera. That's cool. I'll keep going. I don't mind monologuing. And so like I've been playing with these inspirational thoughts of my own. I've had a very difficult time in 2021. Probably the hardest psychological year of my life. And yet it's become the most psychologically rewarding year of my life as well, which is weird, man. So weird. And I didn't realize how much you were drawn to stoicism. But I find that the more that I think in terms of, right, the universe is some sort of mathematical equation, and I attract that which I put out, and I attract that which I sincerely seek, right? I'm certainly attracted to Stoic philosophy. I'm also much more attracted to like the living embodiment of like what that even means, man. Right. And so to put that into a fine point, and then we can kind of get on to our conversation where we want to go. I you Here in Utah, right, we are very well known for our LDS culture, which helps vast communities in the neighborhood. It also, right, has very problematic laws, especially like in Africa, right, where you straight up murder people because they don't agree with your beliefs. And within this realm, people will say things like, I know the Book of Mormon is the one true, right, book of wisdom, or I know that Joseph Smith is the one true prophet. And like, okay, like I hear that those are words, but what does that mean? Right. And so no matter how well read somebody is, no matter what it is that they know, I really want to hear much more from their heart, which has drawn me to actually fellowshipping with the Mormons, man, rather than just like I could sit on my side and make fun of them. Be like, look at these guys. They think differently than me, right? How dare they? How dumb. They don't think like I do.
Right.
And then I can come off like Dr. Phil. Haven't they read my book? Right. Right. Yeah.
I got you.
Um, and so, right, it sounds like you have kind of been down a bit of a stoic journey yourself. I'd
Hmm.
be interested insofar as you can recall, what if we kind of start a baseline of like what you remember about our first interactions, how we met. Let's kind of go from there, figure out kind of how our lives even kind of came together, and then figure out like, maybe we can kind of figure out where we are now
Hmm.
and how our different perspectives might actually be able to aid, right, one another.
So, I will ask you to guide this conversation. Otherwise, man, I'll go down so many rabbit holes we'll both get lost.
That's fine. I may also go off camera because I'm making some hot water right now, so I can make some coffee, and so I will probably do that to warm up. It is freezing cold here in Utah. It doesn't look all that warm where you are, and you are where?
Still in Clarksville, brother.
Oh my God, man! Oh my God, man! Wow, wow, man! Good for you. Wow, man! Some things. That's cool. How did like has it grown, man? So
Oh,
let's
you wouldn't. You wouldn't believe this
let's
place.
let's start there. So we first met basically in Clarksville, right in Fort Campbell.
No, we didn't. We met at Camp Abel Sentry in Macedonia.
Oh shit.
That's
That's
right,
right, man.
in Macedonia.
Man. Yeah, you, Toby, right? Toby
It's me,
introduced me
Toby,
to you.
Medusa, and Long were roommates,
Um,
and
dude,
you.
dude, Long, dude, he was so cool. Dude, I miss
Yeah,
that guy. Right?
yeah,
What was it? 6'2", right? He was six
yeah.
three, so like they taunt him 6'2",
I
6'2".
ran. I ran into him. I want to say, was it Korea in 2015, 2016? I want to say
Mhm.
I ran into Long in Korea.
And so when we first met, that's right. So um Abel Sentry, Macedonia, right? This is 2002, right? So
Correct.
I would have just gotten back from my vacation in Bulgaria. That was
Correct.
pretty amazing. That was mind blowing for me. Um, And
Oh,
and
yeah.
so yeah, so like like take us away from there, man. Like what is Camp Abel Sentry like for you, right? You've been there for a few months.
Mhm.
Kind of spell that out for us a little bit, and then like we met, and let's go from there.
Well,
And I'm gonna go
when
get
I
my hot
found,
water and
well,
as
go
I'm
ahead.
listening, as I'm listening.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd already heard about who I was going to be bunking with prior to getting there. Because, of course, I was part of the 86 Cash, and it was like, oh, you're going to Camp Abel Century, so, you'll be around this person and that person and so on. And so I was already excited about getting to Camp Abel Century anyway. But then to get there and, in the professional capacity that I was there, it was awesome. Um, just because it was a small base camp and and I was the lone wolf doing my job, so to speak. So I wasn't overstressed, overwhelmed, and it was a lot of opportunity for me to just learn and grow as a soldier and as a professional, within my certain job, and then just as a person, um, because I find a way to build relationships with everybody, no matter the capacity.
Yeah,
As a health,
I picked that
as a
up
health,
about you.
as a health inspector, no, you know, if I was in and out of somebody's restaurant or whatever, you know, I always just thought, people are going to have an impression of you regardless. You know, if it's a good impression or a bad impression, at least they will say, he was kind, he was
Yeah,
respectful. He might be a bumbling, stumbling idiot, but he is professional, he is kind, he is a good person. You know what I
like
mean?
that.
And so I've
Sure.
always tried to put that forward with any relationship, because no matter what, I can still be a bad soldier and be a good man.
Oh, I love that. I love that, right? Because a soldier's a job, man. That's all it
Right.
is a job. And just because you don't necessarily like, dude, I was a bad soldier, right? I mean, and but what does it mean to be a soldier, right? I was a free thinker, right? I
You
was a
just
guy
didn't
with a
play. You wasn't good at the game.
I
You
was
weren't good
not
at the
good at the
game.
game. I sucked at the game. And so here's the thing that's taken me a long time to understand is I didn't know how to ask myself these very important questions. What is it that I do on a daily basis that makes my life harder than it needs to be? What is it that I can stop doing right now? And what does that world start to look like if
You're
I
a
do that?
stoic, man. You're a stoic. And I'm gonna tell you the cool thing I like about stoicism is that it's indifferent to religion or spirituality. It's indifferent. You can practice religion. You don't have to, because it's all about just being a better person. And
Mm,
if you're a religious person, then to me, like if you're a Christian and you're
mhm.
following stoicism, then to me, stoicism helps remove all of the bullshit that makes it hard to be a good Christian.
Yeah.
Does
Right.
that
And
make sense?
Christian means, well, and like if you break it down fundamentally, right? Who is Christ? Like Christ is supposed to be like the highest, like the archetype of like the greatest human that you can conceive of. And why it's important to have an archetype is because then it becomes meta real, right? And when it becomes
Right?
meta real, it can incorporate itself into literally every aspect of your reality, but in the same way that you are real. Like you and I have met, you and I have drank copiously. We've had a lot of
We,
shared
we,
good times.
we've
Um,
broke a lot of good bread together.
yeah, we've broke a lot of great bread together, man.
Yeah.
Literal bread too, right? On
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
and but the thing is like because of that reality, there's a limited dimensionality to my ability to understand who you are or who I am through you. Yet there's something hyper real, something that can connect me to every fiber of who I am, every connection, right? Every synaptic connection within my brain. It really having that level of grounding. And like you said, man, and just clear away the bullshit, right? And if you can understand what is the highest archetype of the greatest good that you can conceive of, I don't know, man. It's what you can conceive of. What does that look like?
Let me tell you what it
And
looks like.
yeah,
I can
yeah,
tell
I
you
want to
how
hear
we
that.
can find it.
Yeah.
Right. To me, like because of my experiences and what I've been through, I consider myself pretty emotionally strong, right? Like emotionally speaking, like there's not a lot that I'm gonna go through or that I think or perceive can like just break me down.
The Stoic has broad shoulders.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've just learned through life. And then, like, say, I was a resilience teacher when I was in the Army. And so
Hmm.
that added more to, just not necessarily self confidence, but being able to identify when your trajectory isn't going the way you want it to go and problem solve and do something about it to come to the resolution that you want. Um, Shit, I forgot where I was going. See what I said about rabbit holes?
Yep. And so you were thinking that where you can kind of find, right? I guess a little bit
Oh,
of,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. So basically, what are we? We're energy, right? We're energy, we're spirits, we're souls, whatever you want to say, whatever our purest form is. Your skin color, your hair, your gender, your job, your tattoos, your background, your life story, all of
sure.
that is just layers covering the gem inside, that pure soul. And so when you meet the random person on the street or whatever, can you look past all of that other stuff to recognize and see the God that is within that person and treat them accordingly? Or the spirit or the life force. Like when I meet Josh Cameron, I don't meet Josh Cameron. You're just an avatar.
No, I like
You
that,
know,
man. I like
you're,
that.
you're
And well,
just an
and
avatar. And so when I relate to you, I try to relate from one clear soul to another, and we might have to talk about the fluff and all
yeah,
the other layers to get there.
sure, man. Because like we're humans, right? We have to go through our own, limited ability to conceptualize, right? The landscape. And typically we have to have some sort of fundamental idea of like what makes sense within a conversation, especially something like this that is a kind of a living, breathing thing that's just kind of growing and we're seeing where it goes. And so to come back around a little bit, right? We were talking about Camp Abel Sentry, right? You were there. A lot of really what drives you is just kind of that moral, kind of that moral anchoring of just being a better person. And it seems, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, and then we can talk about where we met. But it seems that you've kind of seen how having that level of grounding can really be what kind of starts creating that pillar within the community.
Yes, sir. Um, I don't know. And like, well, when I grew up, I grew up in the church. You know what I mean? Like I went from Methodist to Baptist to Pentecostal to Church of God in Christ. So I wasn't
Just
just
looking, just looking.
just one denomination, and that's the only thing I have to speak for my religious
Sure.
experience. You know what I mean? So, and then of course, when I joined basic training, I went to a Muslim, couple of Muslim ceremonies because
Yeah,
that's just
man.
knowledge.
I've always I feel I kind of feel like I've robbed myself by not. I should look into here seeing if there's any local. It would be very interesting to see what sort of like cultures I can kind of be a part of. And like I find like the more I look at people and I share like respect with them. I watched a conversation and they were talking about Jesus and how Jesus was like people tried to like haha, right, tell us which of these commandments are the best, Jesus, right? So then again we can ensnare you. And he effectively said, look, right, basically honor God above all else, right? Have no other God, and then love thy neighbor as thyself. And that's a paraphrase, but and I think that ultimately, when you unpack what you just said about your kind of moral anchoring and that philosophy right there, right? I'm a secular guy, man, so I was not raised in the church, but if we're talking archetypes of greatness, well, what is an archetype of greatness but perfection, right? That's probably, and now perfection itself doesn't really, it makes about as much sense as infinity, right? Because it's nebulous, right? I mean, the hell is perfection? Like, what do we know? Like, we're imperfect creatures. So when we say perfection, we're all immediately going to have our own understanding of what that is within our own,
Right.
imperfections. And so, but trying to actually articulate that and figure that out, while also loving your neighbor as yourself, right? So perfection is going to demand everything of you.
All right. So I have a question.
Well, hold on a sec.
Okay.
Perfection is going to demand everything of you. And if it demands everything of you, well, then if you sin and fall away from that, it's going to drive you crazy, man. And your conscience is going to really tear you upside one side down the other. And this is really what Socrates talked about when he said that he had an inner voice that told him how to be his best self. And here we are talking about him thousands of years later. The Socratic, method is still probably the most useful way to interact within society in order to sniff out that bullshit, right? And you get people to actually, see, do you even believe what it is that you think you believe? And from this idea where we can't help but project, and if you have to love your neighbor as you love yourself, we're creatures of projection. Whatever it is that we're afraid of, we're going to project it. It's not that I'm a coward, it's that you're a coward, Dathan, and you're reminding me of it. How dare you? And so if I then try to steel man your argument
Mhm.
rather than straw man, and I make your argument as defensible as possible, well, then it means that at every level in which I'm going to then project onto you my weaknesses, I'm going to see the value in finding a defensible place there. And it's really going to help me scour my own psyche and my own ability to really understand what the hell it is I think that I understand while chasing perfection. And so if you look at it that way, right, I think that blows away the need for any sort of mystical bullshit. Not that I'm against it, man. I love the idea of God. I'm totally, but a lot of people have a problem with it, right? There's a lot of, say, atheists that are very militant, and but they're still Americans, man. And if they're created in the image of God, well, isn't there like divinity there waiting to be recognized?
See, but that's the thing, right? So when you say atheists, and then you say if they're created in the image of God, well, they
Just
don't
because
believe.
they don't believe it doesn't change, right? Just because you don't believe in a fact doesn't mean the fact doesn't exist.
But who
Just
says
because they
God
don't
is?
believe in God doesn't mean that God doesn't exist, right? So
Because you believe in him doesn't mean he does exist. See,
exactly, exactly.
that's the
But
thing. But see, and
yeah,
that's the
okay, go
thing,
ahead. Yeah, so
you
I've
see
been
what I'm
talking
getting
for
at?
at length, so you take this. Go ahead.
Because it's kind of like with the whole atheist thing, is that
Yeah.
who gives a damn?
Mm,
Is he a good dude?
yeah,
Is she a good woman?
I like it.
You know what I
Well,
mean? After the rest of it is fluff.
well,
They
because at the end
are
of the
they
day, it
are
should land you at the middle of your own heart. And if you can answer, is he a good dude? And it's not the reflection of your own heart, well, then you know you're a liar, right?
what's 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 at the heart? What they believe or what they do?
Well, if we can only see what we can see, and so when we erect a god, it's nothing more than an idea of what we see, which is why when I reached out to you with that video of mine about, what is the greatest good of which I can conceive, and I talk about Gandalf, talk about the sort of Shannara, how that burns away the bullshit, um, and really helps you figure out, like, at the end of the day, right, the best person to be is that guy who looks for people who enjoy life in like the simplest terms, which is
Yep.
kind of like what you talked about. And we met, right? So we've been talking now at length, going around in circles. So we met at Camp Abel Sentry. Um,
It's hard when you know where the
within,
conversation is going.
dude, well, and we haven't caught up in so long, so easy to get off track. Um, so we met at Camp Abel Sentry in 2002. So 19 years ago. Damn, bro. Um,
Almost
and
20, man. It was January of 2002.
Dude, oh my God, you're right, dude. Man, you're right. Yeah, because Yep,
We're old,
because
man.
yeah, we deployed Kosovo,
In
September
October.
19th,
Yeah,
2001,
September.
dude.
Yeah,
That was
September.
fucking crazy, man. For 6 months, we knew that we were deploying, and then September 11th happened, and like, hey, what could happen, man? We're going to Kosovo. This is gonna be a sweet, right?
But
Um,
anyway, back on track.
yeah. So back on track, Camp Abel Sentry. We met. You guys have Beaver Creek, right? I'm now first day at clinic in Macedonia. I
Hmm.
meet you guys. I hear about Beaver Creek, and let's go from there, man. Right? Take us through a typical day as a health inspector working around a bunch of nurses and and medics.
Well, I can say for one, me being like I've always tried to keep my peace close.
Hmm.
And so obviously the best way to do that is to be around small, intimate settings. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Where not
Yeah.
only do you remember faces, but you remember names and the people that you spend, you know, all of your awake hours around. You become a family because, people from scattered all over the country. But, you learn them, you learn their stories, and, you learn to appreciate who they are
Mm.
by knowing where they come from and what
Yeah.
they've been through. you know. But as a young health inspector, man, like I say, it was good because, like I say, it was small, and so it was less bureaucratic. You know what I mean? We were, as they say, away from the flagpole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a little give and take, a little more give and take, a little less rigid. And so, as a health inspector, for me, man, it was a great chance to grow. You know what I mean? Like at that point, I had been a health inspector less than 2 years.
And you were how old at that point?
Let me see, that was 2002, 25.
Okay, so 25. In January of 20, so I would have been 21. I would have been a 21-year-old man. Um, and so you had a few years on me. Um, and so I think that I ended up bunking up with you guys, right? Wasn't I part of yep.
Yes, you did.
Okay. So for the two, I think it was a 2 week rotation. Does that sound right? Was it a 2 week rotation that we did in Macedonia?
No,
Like we
that
had
was,
people.
I think that may have been somebody else, but that wasn't us because we were the core folks in the clinic.
No, you guys were, and then like people from Kosovo would come and do like 2 week rotations with you guys.
Were
Like I
you
only
on that
spent a little bit
rotation?
of time with you guys, and then I went right back to
Oh, that's
Kosovo.
right. Because I remember
Yep.
thinking, I can't wait to get out and hang with fucking
Yeah.
Cameron.
Yeah.
I can't wait to
Yeah.
get out. I can't wait to get back and party with Josh.
Dude, that was so fun, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like it's as a soldier, right? It is kind of interesting where you find those meaningful connections with people. Like, did I know that guy by his first name? Right? He doesn't get offended by me calling him by his first name, right? Like we're bros. Um, and that's weird, man. And so, where are you from?
East Texas.
East East
Yeah,
Texas.
little,
Okay.
little, little bitty place.
Okay. My boss right now is from Texas. I like that. I'm digging
Someday,
that.
you know where?
Um, so he's in Dallas. He just flew us out to Dallas
Okay, he's in
recently,
Dallas.
but he just moved from downtown Dallas to I can't think off the top of my head where his office is,
Hey,
but
Cameron. Hey,
yeah,
I think I got a better way for this to flow
yep,
because you have the format in your head,
yep,
and I think you really just kind of want to pick my brain.
a little bit. Well,
So I
and
think,
and kind of connect because
oh,
part of
okay.
this is not just seeing like what you know.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of hoping that this can also like, dude, we're all going through a pandemic,
Yeah, but
right?
I but I but I, but I think if you just kind of ask me more specific questions,
Keep you on
so
point.
to speak, yeah, because like right now, because we're both rambling,
Yeah.
you know
Okay.
what I mean,
And I
and
and
I
I
think that's
I
a,
kind of I try to come back a little bit, and then I let you,
yeah,
and we both get off.
and I think
Yeah.
yeah, and I think
Okay.
we're both
So,
venturing from the
all
point
right,
because yeah,
let's actually get beyond this. Let's not
okay,
belabor Abel Sentry anymore. So,
yeah,
let me put some broad strokes there. I think I spent 2 weeks there. I got to know you guys. Pretty awesome. I think that's actually where I first met Toby.
mhm,
I heard plenty of stories about him, and then I crafted a pretty meaningful relationship with him afterwards. We then later, by afterwards, right, hung out at Fort Campbell, became part of Beaver Creek Hash House Harriers, and really had a strong just camaraderie, man. I mean, we had just a pretty fun brotherhood. Uh, what was there was a Angel. What was Angel's last name? Um, he was a
Oh, again, one of those people we call by the first name so much we
yeah.
can't remember the last name.
Yeah, so he was homies with Mercado.
Yep.
And he got in trouble by, ended up dating like a married lady, and then that caused, but man, I love that guy. He was our religious advisor with Beaver
Yes, he
Creek, dude.
was.
Man, I love that guy so much. Just Rosado. That's right, Pink Angels.
Yeah,
I
Rosado.
knew that. I knew it. He told me, you know what, Josh? Like, here's like the manliest man I've ever seen. This dude just doing push-ups like he's fucking what's his name?
Big,
So
big
yeah,
massive
well,
Puerto Rican dude.
dude, in my face, and he's like, yeah, man, my name
Yeah.
means Pink Angels. Like,
You know who he remind me of? He
who?
remind me of Razor Ramon from
Dude,
WWE.
dude. Oh my god, he had the intensity too. And then when you actually sit around and drink with that guy, man, oh my god, I love that guy so much. Rosado, man, and the meaningful relationships that you craft, when you're surrounded by purpose, which is usually burdened and crafted through responsibility, which you usually have to take up willingly. Now, that said, right, we talked about, what does it mean to be a good soldier? What does it mean to be a bad soldier? I certainly was not the best soldier. Part of that, like you said, I was not good at playing the game. Right. Here's a guy, I had a tyrannical chip on my shoulder. And I was like, you know what? I should totally let my oldest brother convince me that joining a totalitarian environment is exactly what I need, man. That's exactly what I need.
You
Wait,
were
what?
high strung. You were high strung. Good
Dude,
God.
so high strung, bro. And the thing is I didn't really allow myself to see myself in a leadership role until I met Toby. Toby is the one who really helped me see that. And so he really said, "Look, man, you're like the ultimate wingman, right?" But like I could see, yeah, he told me like I could see you being, right, the freaking what was the guy? So I was the hash harrier or the hair raiser, but what was his title? He was like the head honcho of the whole thing, and I can't
Right.
remember
I'm telling you what it is.
yeah, I can't remember either. So there's this whole thing. So we were part of there's the GTH3, which is the Global Trash Hash House Harriers, right? This is a hash group formally started basically from
Somewhere in Malaysia.
I
Like,
think rugby from
no, no,
like
no, no. It was actual, fox hunting.
yeah, which
Hair hunting.
yeah.
The
Oh, that's
hounds and hair.
right. That's right.
That's why we're the hair.
That's
That's why
right.
they call it
Yep.
hair. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think it was
Yep.
Malaysia somewhere like. Well, I
Well,
know
and so we
every
took
year in
something that was
Malaysia
for
there's a
fine
big
gentlemen, for
right
very fine gentlemen, and cigars, and we turned it into just
trashed it.
drunken disorder. Yeah. Into an environment where everything had to be at least 2% true. 2% true
Yep,
meant no shit. There I was, me and Dathan.
yep. A drinking club with a running problem.
Yep. You'll find that the best stories were about 85% true. And there's just enough, right, fluff in there. And that comes back down to fluff, right? We said everything else is fluff, but sometimes fluff is actually what connects you. And so, this conversation again is a bit of a just kind of a living, breathing thing. And really what I'm hoping is that we can kind of give an exploration into like, what does it mean to like celebrate life within a pandemic, right? Of 2021, right? Here it is at, at New Year's Eve. And you and I have known each other from the most like effed up, the most effed up situation in our country's history from 20 years ago. And yet it seems like we found ourselves to be maybe stronger people. And you have how many kids now?
3.
Three. And you said 13, 9, and 2.
Yes, sir.
What are their names?
Charlotte's my 13-year-old daughter. Dathan Jr. is my 9-year-old son, and Calliope is my 2-year-old daughter.
Dathan Jr. I'm glad you really searched for that one. You're like, man, this is hard. This is hard. I gotta come I gotta come up with a name.
I ain't gonna lie, man. Piece of me kind of
Regrets.
I won't say regret,
Regrets.
but wish I hadn't done it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but then again, like I say, I'm on this whole new thing about my own internal peace, and so
there's the thing is we often will ask and should ask ourselves, what sort of implications do we have as we interact with other people, and what does it mean that our actions put them on another path? And I think, again, if we come back to, like, if our moral grounding is in goodness, well, like the intermediate day to day is kind of that fluff that, again, is meaningless. But if at the end of the day, right, in the video again that I created, right, the whole point is, if you're around somebody where after engaging with them, after being in fellowship with them, you feel like a better person, dude, that's what life's about, man. And you take that and you spread it. And you be a lamp in the darkness.
And and sticking with what you just said, and like I've limited myself really to not talking to people who don't want to have conversations that I don't walk away feeling like that.
Bro, dude, you mean, like you said yourself, I was high strung, man. Like, F your face. How dare you? How dare you make me look like I don't know everything? What's wrong with you, man? Have you read my book?
Yeah, you definitely could have used a slice of humble pie.
Yeah, well, and I've had it, dude.
But we grow, man. We grow, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing is, and I think,
humble
we,
pie.
we all have a learning curve.
Yep.
But I think is, once we connect those dots, what makes us better people is doing something positive with that new information, making that change.
Yep.
Not complaining just to fucking complain.
Yes.
Are you going to do something about it? If you're not going to do something about it, shut the fuck up.
Dude, I love it. I love it. Like
I'm tired of hearing it.
Oh my God. Preach, brother. Preach.
Because you are fucking with my peace because you're not doing anything to help your own.
Right. Right. And your chaos is threatening to engulf me.
Right.
And then you're like, not my problem. Bull fucking shit, it ain't your problem.
Yeah, and you're trying to make it my problem, and it's not my problem.
Right.
I don't know.
And so, what started that path? Like, what do you think it was that had you face on, like, Dathan, here's your humble pie?
I've always had a slice of humble pie my whole life. Okay. Like, I had a pretty rough childhood.
All right.
Pretty rough childhood. But I also have to say that the person who was responsible for making my childhood rough also gave me the good foundation of what it takes to be a Black man in America.
I love it, dude.
At the same time,
complicated AF, man. Complicated.
At the same time, so I say this, like, in life, my biggest villain is also my biggest hero.
Yin yang, man.
He made my life hell growing up. But throughout all that hell, man, when the clouds broke and the sun shined, dude, the wisdom that came through those fucking rain clouds, the old man spit some bars. He was an asshole. He was a fucking asshole. But
I unfortunately didn't have that. I wish I had that.
He spoke nothing but truth. But he spoke nothing but truth. And so here I am, 44 years old, and I'll uncover some other truth that I hadn't heard since I was 13. I'm like, fuck, the old man was spitting bars. Wish he wasn't such an asshole, but damn, he was spitting some knowledge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's kind of like what you heard when you were in the military, you're going to be exposed to different types of leaders. Take the good stuff from the ones you like and disregard the stuff that you don't like. Right. And it's kind of like that with my old man, you know what I mean? And so for that, like I say, he's my hero because without him giving me some of the lessons and the shit that I learned under him, I don't think I would have the peace of mind that I do now.
Mm.
As fucked up as that sound,
No, dude, not at all. Not at all.
I went through shit, as a kid and as a teenager that a lot of people don't go through until they're in their midlife.
All right.
So I've already shown resilience
Yep.
for a lot of things early in life. You know what I'm saying? I'd
Mhm.
already been hit in the mouth when I was a kid. I didn't get hit in the mouth for the first time when I was a grown man. You know what I mean? And so as hard as I grew up, it made me hard. But he also beat the foundation into me that I wasn't going to be like him and wouldn't let me be like him. Does that make sense?
Kind of. And so let me take a step back and take you through my
And that
childhood.
shaped, and that
So,
shaped who I am today.
so I've, part of why I was so high strung, man. Right. Let's talk about that. So I was born as a very sensitive kid. I was somebody that you could, really make cry at a pin drop, which was unfortunate, and my brothers took, a lot of advantage of. I was very gullible because, like, what did I know? I really had, this cow-eyed look at the world, and it was really hard for me to, I think, delimit, um, right, God of my parents, to like my parents are people. And the problem with not being able to have any sort of healthy way to distinguish between that is my folks divorced when I was 2. Before I had, any sort of, or maybe right at the time I was making like physical memories. My mom got remarried to a tyrannical drunk that played upon her tyrannical drunkenness. And the problem is that it became rage monsters. And there was nothing about it like, hey, you're gonna be a better person. Hey, you're gonna learn from my mistakes. It's I'm a rage monster and I'm gonna annihilate everything in my path, right? This is Scarlet Witch has whispered into the ear of Hulk and let him loose onto the city. And it's gross, man. And this is what I've had to deal with my entire life. Now the problem is that means God to me is nothing but this tyrannical Godzilla trashing Japan constantly. 2, how do I not get seen by Godzilla? Well, then I turn myself invisible. 3, the survival instinct of turning myself invisible is the exact thing that makes me a naive prey animal in the very school system that preys upon me, and I'm just trying to survive. And so, well, hold on. And so this is really the America that we create. And then we have all this, put in like all this extra of the pandemic on top of that. And if you don't have some sort of grounding and something better, something stronger, it's gonna fucking crush it, man. Anyway, so you wanted to pause, go ahead.
And well, my son reminds me so much of you. Like when you described yourself, you just described my son to a T. I mean, like he might as well be Josh Cameron Jr.
That's awesome.
Because I mean, everything from just cry at the drop
Hmm.
of a dime, and
Sure.
just so passionate and just everything is passion.
Yep.
And there's no middle ground. It's
Yeah. No.
extreme
Yep.
passion up here or extreme passion
Well, and it
down here.
needs it needs boundaries, man. But the
And
thing
that's
is,
what
if you're a tyrant, it's going to seek boundaries to smash you because it can't be held
and see
with a
and like and
tyrannical
what
force.
and like what the and like and I realize that, but the thing is though, it's like he just refuses to listen to reason and ration until it's too late.
Okay, so what would Seneca, right? So or like
No,
you could
what I
say,
do is, I mean, I stay calm. I stay
yeah,
calm because
which you
like,
should. I love it.
because what I do is like, what, like I'm always self-reflecting.
Hmm.
I was like, when I was in the army, I never had any problem engaging my soldiers in conversation. Correcting them, discipline, whatever. And I was like, why? Well, one, because I didn't yell at them.
Mm,
So I don't yell unless it's like
stepping
last,
up. Yep.
but I'm calm, I was like, all right, cool. You
I
want
like
to add
that.
that? And so
Let's explore that a little bit. I really like that idea. So you found that maintaining a very calm, rational demeanor has not only allowed you to be like a father figure archetype, right, within the army, but actually makes you an individual better father, right?
mhm,
Wow, man, I like that a lot. Um, so in my naive way of looking at the world, right, in my just mixture of, again, just Godzilla just trying to murder me and me trying to survive Godzilla on a daily basis. And then thrown into like wherever, like Mothra and whatever other freaking tyrannical, right, within the school system. And then it ended up getting me to a point where, like, what did I know? The only thing I knew is that I was angry. The world gave me nothing but anger and hatred. That's all. That's the only language that I knew. I didn't realize. It took me a lot longer to realize what's the quote. Language is the, or sorry, violence is the language of the incompetent. And and I realize now it was my incompetence, right? And it was my resentment of just how weak I was in my position to know that I had something to say but couldn't say it. I couldn't affect the course of my life. And
man, holy cow.
dude, and so there's
You, you,
there
you just you just described my psychoanalysis of my son.
dude, I love it. I
I
love
mean,
it.
like everything you just said
Mhm.
is the exact diagnosis that I told my wife about my son.
And so I love playing with the idea of, and it was brought to me by Ken Wilber, a philosopher who does commentary on the Matrix with also Cornell West, right? It's no, yeah, it's not an accident that I call you Cornell West. I have deep admiration for that guy. Um, and it also has taught me a lot because here's a guy who, like, I used to, like, from a white dude in Utah. What the F did I know, man? And it wasn't even like, hey, look at that black dude. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a black guy. Dude, I
Like
went to
that, like that movie with Brendan Fraser. Oh, my lucky star is a Negro.
dude, my dude, my high school, I think we had over 2,000 people and there were three black kids.
Mm. Well,
Three.
I was like the only black kid in my class until like the fourth grade.
Of 2,000 students, like,
No,
were
I
you
mean
like,
I had 17 kids in my senior class,
okay? And so
but
that's one thing,
like I
but
said,
imagine
it
being
was rural
three of
East Texas.
like 2,000.
Right. But I'm just saying though, just but it was rural East
Sure.
Texas. And, I was the only black kid till I was in the. But I couldn't imagine with it being of 2,000. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so I've never been in that dynamic before, where I've been that extreme minority until, right, I went overseas with the army. And so now I started getting this weird paradigm shift, based upon me voluntarily signing a line. I made it much harder for myself. Here I am, a terrible, I don't know about a terrible soldier. Just, I'm not living up to what I could be. I did in Kosovo, and it was recognized by, dude. I got Colonel Joel Saint, man. I was one of, I think, 7 people who got a coin from
Mhm.
General Shinseki, dude, when he was Joint Chief of Staff.
Oh,
He gave 7 coins to Joel Saint and said, "Give them to your best soldiers." I got one of them motherfuckers, dude.
that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, man. And when you ping the system, say, hey, I can do something, I'm competent, right? I can interact, and so as high strung as I was, it was pretty obvious that, like, I enjoyed talking to people and I could make, and so do you remember Ronnie Allen? Dude, he hated Ronnie. Oh, he hated that name, Ronnie. What did he go by? He was a Puerto Rican guy too. And
Jimmy,
Sergeant Allen, Jimmy,
Jimmy.
Jimmy, dude, he was,
Yeah,
dude.
be a
So
bitch. Be a bitch.
dude, dude. So he and I had a bit of a falling out, but man, I love that dude, man, so
Another
much.
high-strung person such as
Another
yourself.
high strung person, very high
Yeah,
strung.
very high-strung.
He and Tammy, dude, I didn't understand, dude. That just confused me. And I was high strung. And anyway, let's not get into that. Um, I drove right in Fort Polk. So I was with Terry Beasley, if you remember him. And so I'm driving an FLA, right, 4-liter ambulance. We're going through the slimiest, squelchiest mud of Louisiana, man. If we stop for a second, we're fucked. We are absolute fucked. Because like what happens? Like the second you stop in the swamp, and you just sucked over your tires. Like, how are you gonna get going? And so army training. All right, Josh, do not stop no matter what. Doesn't matter. Do not stop. So it's just a matter of scanning like what's there, man. What's there that I can fit through? Beasley, pull your window in. Let's get through. Because I showed competence there, well, it had Lieutenant Tibbets at the time, then promoted to Captain Tibbets, was working with Staff Sergeant Allen, so a different Sergeant Allen.
Mhm.
Lots of sergeant.
You talking about the tall white dude.
Yep, tall white dude. Yep, very also high strung.
Mhm.
Broncos fan, dude. If you would ever tell that guy like Denver Broncos suck, dude, he'd want to stab you in the eye with an ice pick, dude.
Because
Um,
Allen was in that Bruno,
yes. Yep.
Mercado, Ferrigno,
Man, you have a really good memory, dude. I'm
Fig,
impressed.
that relationship. Well, man, like I say, a lot of people have different strengths and weaknesses, and a lot of people have multiple, you know. And my biggest strength, like if somebody asks, what do you bring to the table to help mankind? It would be my ability to build rapport with people.
Is there anything that we need more, right?
Hmm?
Is
For
there
what?
anything that we need more? Like looking at where we are on New Year's Eve, right? Again, pandemic, USA, pandemic world. Um, I mean, is there anything that we need more than what you just said?
Like I think that's my greatest value as as a man is my ability to, one, see people for who and what they are, and then expect them to be that. And that's how you build rapport.
And how long did you spend in the? Are you retired now, or are you still in the army?
Yeah, I'm retired. I
Okay, I
retired
thought
and
so.
I retired on this day in 2017.
What, dude? Good for you,
Yeah,
man. That's awesome.
4 years ago to the day.
Dude, I love it. I love it.
I,
Well, happy anniversary, man. I'm glad I can celebrate with that with you.
yeah,
Um,
I forgot today was New Year's Eve until you mentioned it earlier.
yeah, dude, that's awesome. And so you retired and you spent how long in, you said?
21 years, 4 months, and 2 days.
And within that, it seems like the most fundamental takeaway that you've got with kind of human interaction is if you treat people with respect, you don't fluff up their worldview with your own bullshit. Chances are you're going to see exactly what it is they're trying to say. You might disagree with it, but as somebody who spent 21 years in the army, um, there's value in objectively hearing what somebody says, even if you might find it disagreeable in the moment.
Now on this little journey, now I'm at the point where I have to learn to walk away.
Mm,
Like I meet people with respect, and and even if they respond in kind, and like I say, I I respect your opinion, but at the
mm.
same time, I don't give a fuck about your opinion. So don't force it on me.
Sure, dude, I love
Just
it.
because
I
just
love it.
because I respect it doesn't mean I have to give a fuck about it.
Sure. Yeah,
So don't force. And when you start forcing on me, and if I know your opinion is full of shit, then I'm going to attack you. You know what I'm saying? Like
sure.
Hiroshima, Nagasaki style.
Sure,
Uh,
man. Because
yeah,
I've given you every ample
right,
opportunity to be able to gracefully bow out. And if you're gonna keep pushing, well, then I'm gonna let you know that hey,
right. And
this is not
because I
acceptable to
think
you.
where the world is right now is too many people are able to disrespect someone And then when someone responds in kind, the original offender is now the one who was wrong. And so we need a society almost back like the Wild Wild West, where if I'm walking on this side of the street and you come all the way over across the side of the street to fuck with me, to disrupt my peace, regardless of what it is,
Yep.
I have every right to just beat the shit out of you because you didn't have, you didn't have to hit me in the mouth. Well, you could have just kept walking.
So I like the idea there. That said,
No, but what I'm
there's
saying is, though, we need to have that expectation of ourselves that if I
yes,
cross the street to go fuck with this dude,
yes,
he might blow my fucking head off. That's
but
the individual responsibility we have.
but okay, so let's talk about that though. Let's go back to is it really an individual responsibility that we're lacking, or is it that we're actually like we're trying to extinguish that exact trait out of our culture? I mean, that's whether you're a man or a woman, that's a masculine, trait. And how often do we hear toxic masculinity? Anything
But
that
I think,
has to do with any sort of like masculine trait is going to be anathema to today's kind of Me Too culture. And I
think about
certainly,
it.
well, hold on, before I
Mhm.
potentially put myself in hot water by
Oh, you
saying,
did.
I've got no problem with, somebody saying, hey, I don't want to be groped, right?
Mhm.
You're gross. Please don't
Mhm.
grope me. Like
Mhm.
that makes complete sense, right? We've been talking about respect, right? And taking people as they are. Chances are you don't want me just coming up and cupping your balls, right? Hey, what's up, bro? How are you? Right? Right.
Well,
um, and so like the idea that you would want me to like turn around and like cup your ass, right? And so within but the problem is that I recognize that that's not good behavior. Um, and yet like there's no like give and take of like, okay, well, I can see that um that you're willing to have a rational dialogue within this arena. It's always well, men are always bad. If you speak on the idea of like this like kind of masculine um kind of
hey,
danger, right?
my,
Like you
my,
said, people are no longer afraid that they're going to get punched in the face
my
by
pillow,
disrespecting somebody. And
hey,
part of that
hey,
is
man.
you need to have that inherent danger that people
Well,
should see that you're a dangerous person,
I'm
but
saying my hero growing
don't
up
act
would
on
say,
that danger.
huh?
You just don't act on like you want to be a dangerous animal. You just don't act. That's what
Right,
makes you gracious, right?
right. Well, my hero would often say, if I did something and I got hurt or got fucked up, he would say, what the fuck did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
So, and that's why I say, identify people for who they are and trust them to act accordingly.
Yeah.
So just kind of go back to the whole Hollywood thing. It's a snake.
Mm,
He's a snake.
yep.
He's a poisonous, slimy serpent sitting there hanging on the tree in the Garden of Eden. He's a fucking snake. Now you can go up and play with the snake all you want. He may bite you, he might not. But when he bites, you don't get mad at the snake for being a fucking snake.
When you knew
When
willingly
you knew
and
he was a
from the
snake.
jump that he was a snake and you had no illusions, right? And
Right.
then all of a sudden clutching your pearls,
Yeah.
hit me. He's a snake. Well, yeah, dude, of course,
And,
right?
and see, and that's and see, and like I say, and that's the difference between empathy and sympathy.
Mm,
Empathy pulls you down the emotional rabbit hole. Just because like, oh my God, how dare he do that to you? Because the only thing you can think of is empathy and whatever. Sympathy says, damn, that sucks. But let's diagnose this and break this down and see how we got here.
So let's take a step back real quick. So
And the
pity
really
is
good,
usually like a
oh,
hey, sucks to suck, bro. Figure it
yeah,
out. And
yeah.
empathy is usually like, hey, I kind of like feel for you and I kind of want to see, I see myself in you, right? The idea of like Christ, like
And that's how we
taking
take on
taking the
secondary
sins of the world
traumatization.
upon himself,
Right.
right?
And
That's
that's how we take
effectively
on Right.
empathy.
And that's how we take on secondary traumatization and feeling
Right.
other people's burdens and pains when a lot of
Ah,
people aren't
okay. I see what you're saying.
mentally,
So if you're
you
not
know,
ready for it and you take it on,
right.
it
If
can
you're
be
not mentally capable of that, don't put yourself in that situation.
yeah. And
And that kind of
yet,
goes back to that resiliency training because I taught
mm,
battle fatigue and burnout in hospitals and how to combat those and effectively problem solve.
and yet, how often do we see that we throw ourselves out there like these bastions of virtue signaling? I'm here to save the day, and I have no fucking idea how to save myself.
For
But I'm
that,
going to
but you
save the
know,
day. Just you
and
wait.
not to say that their opinions and their ideas aren't relevant, but they don't have the mental capacity to sustain the fight.
Right. Well, because they're not grounded in anything,
Well,
right?
not
They
mental,
they
but
they they
emotional.
have a
I mean,
feeling.
emotional capacity to sustain the fight.
Sure. Well, I mean, you got to have some sort of internal fusion reactor, right? And that really comes from, right? You're a stoic. The more you're grounded in something, and the more you try to lift that which you're grounded in, right? It kind of creates this, kind of turbine effect. And so it can really create this internal fusion reactor that can really help propel you. And if you're introspective, right, that fusion reactor doesn't need to be just a chaotic explosion that like a rocket sends you just to go forever. But the introspection can actually allow you to see what's coming up. Do I need to slow my roll a little bit? Am I like trouncing over people? Am I being a bit too much of an obnoxious a-hole? And it really helps you kind of see again, like not only has it shown in my experience, right, as a black man, 21 years in the army, that if you treat people as they are, they'll treat you as you are. And you can actually act accordingly and be able to measure that. Um, if you have, it takes a strong person to be able to have that, man. And if you have somebody who can teach that to you, flawed as they may be, right? Your hero, right, that you talked about, your dad, flawed as they may be, if they have the ability to teach you in a way that you can take that and then teach somebody to be a little bit better, that kind of comes back down to, like you said, man, right? You're alive, you procreate, you pass on that gene to be a better person. But then also the thought gene, right? It's not just our gene, like, hey, yeah, not to be too vulgar, but I squirted, my son into like the belly, right? If you want to get into like the novels, but right, there's so much more to life, and it's complicated,
But
and there's
I disagree. I don't think
well,
there is
and
much more life.
go ahead, yeah, I want to hear that. Let's go.
I think it's really simple. I think we overcomplicate it. All right, because
Maybe that's what it is.
I think anybody that cares would agree that the point, you want to get to heaven, right? Everybody wants to get to heaven, to
Mhm.
get after. Well, how do we get there? Everybody says, "Oh, you follow this God, you follow that God, you do this and that." When the bottom line, it's all about being virtuous.
Yeah.
And what's the only way to be virtuous? Is to project kindness into the world,
I love it.
right? And the only way to truly project kindness into the world is you do it, regardless of the outcome.
Hey, I don't know if
If you're
your
able to
finger
do
might
it,
be on the mic. Okay.
my bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
if
you're
you're able
fine.
to do it, you do it regardless of the outcome. Like, I don't hold the door open for somebody so they can say thank you or get mad if they don't say thank you. Because if I did it for that reason, if I got mad that they didn't say thank me, did I truly do it out of kindness?
Right. What was the point? Right. Am I virtue signaling? Am I
Right.
any different than somebody who I
It's just
castigate
being
for their virtue
right. And
signaling?
I think that's what self-righteous is.
Yeah.
Is when you're doing righteous acts, but for the benefit of yourself.
Yes. Right.
you know. And so, and believe it or not, man, my wife checked me on that one day and it clicked, because I was at the store and I opened up and I was like, man, you see that one walking there, had all that stuff in her hands. She didn't even say thank you. And my wife was like, then why'd you open up the door for her? Bam.
Dude. Right. Well, what was the point, man? Like you
Yeah,
served a good, man.
yeah. And that's the point, is to do it good,
You did good and know that you did good.
and that's the point of life. Everything else is fluff.
I
Everything
love
else is
it.
circumstantial. Like I have a house and kids and all of that, but what does any of that have to do with me being kind to people and treating people with respect?
I love that. So this has
I wouldn't
really
want to
been
be a
about a
super.
conversation about respect, man. I
Yeah,
love it. I love
I
it.
wouldn't want to be a millionaire or a billionaire if it meant I had to squash people to get there. You know, if I had to step on a little man to get there.
If I had to squash more than I helped, right? So here's
And
my
like,
thing. I've been wrestling with this at length. Like I'm hyper political.
mhm.
I've been wrestling with this at length. Are there bugs worth squashing? Right? There's somebody, there's philosophers like Sam Harris that have helped me kind of like play with this. And um, I don't know that the bug, like in the fact or in the sense of like I should squash like the bug and like sap somebody of their life force, or if the bug is like the thought virus, right? And so maybe the best thing that I can do is be kind of a thought inoculant rather than because I'm not going to go around and just murder a bunch of people that I disagree with. So if I really believe that I have the ability to articulate fine points, right, and I'll let others be the judge of that. If I really do think that I can actually um, maintain some semblance of goodness within a pretty malevolent world, and show kind of a meaningful way to, I guess, help others make that manifest. Um, I guess that for me has become most paramount, and really what's driving me, and that's kind of my star of Nazarene, if you will, my North Star. And just that, like, okay, so there's a goodness here. That goodness burns away the bullshit that just doesn't matter. Okay. So what's left? Okay. So people who just are happy to be alive. Well, who's that? Well, that's probably everyone. Oh, well, that's weird. Well, what about them? Even though those guys who disagree with me are happy to be alive? Well, that's weird. Huh. And so, okay, well, all right. So maybe they're actually one of my tribe. And I just kind of, what if I quit coloring over them with the type of, marker or pencil that I choose to put in my hand, and rather than like demand, right, that they are my straw man of what I think they are, I actually allow them to tell me who they are, and then we can
Hey,
see where that goes.
can I say something about tribalism?
Yeah,
I think it's cool and all, but again, I think a lot of people put too much stock in the label itself. Like you say, find somebody that, hey, this person's my tribe.
mm,
I'm in everybody's tribe.
yeah,
If you find me a person, as long as they aren't trying to kill me, I can find a way to be in their tribe
sure. Was that
without, without,
maybe I'm
unless that
mistaken?
I'm
Was
not
that the
gonna.
whole point of Tribe Called Quest, right? I mean, the tribe, like
I,
I'm a part of that
I didn't
quest,
listen.
man.
I didn't listen to them dudes.
I didn't listen to them either, but
But like I say, obviously I have there are things I'm not gonna compromise. I'm not gonna fit in just for the sake of fitting in.
sure.
You know, but if it's, that I think, there's some common interest and it's for, like I say, other than everybody's jumping off a cliff, I'll find a way to fit in with anybody.
Well,
Give me a
if it
former
serves,
Nazi skinhead and a guy who's no longer a former Nazi, I'll be able to treat him just like he never was.
well,
You
and
know,
so therein
people,
lies like the beauty again of if you if you take upon yourself, right, the sins of the world. Look, dude, look at the world right now. Look at the Twitter mob, right? That we see people freaking out that you said the like, the wrong word. You should be canceled. You should be fired. You should never be able to show your face again in society. And like, oh my God, how did those people turn into a mass concentration camp, right? I don't understand how that entire country turned into a
right.
concentration camp. And then you have like in 2021, man, in the U.S. Like it's insane. It's
That's
insane.
why
Like
I just
cognitive
knocked off
dissonance,
all
man.
social media.
But this is what happens also when you starve people, right? When you have people that are working 40, 50 hours a week, they're barely able to get by, right? Maslow created his hierarchy of needs for a reason, right? You can only be a stoic to the degree in which you can live, right?
No,
Um,
no,
and
no, no,
so
no, no,
you
no,
need to
no.
be able
No, I
to, you
can
need
be
to
a
be able to
stoic
like,
all the way up to, I could be a stoic all the way up to my death.
yeah, but exactly my
Yeah,
point. You can
yeah.
only be a stoic up until, right, so you can live. And so but the thing is like Maslow created like his hierarchy of needs is effectively like, are you going to succumb to the elements? You can't be a stoic if you're going to die, right? Okay, well, let's get above that. Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have housing? Well, above that, you've got, can you secure those on the regular, right? Do you have like a mud hole that you crawl into, or do you actually have a house, right? Um, and so that's
Hey,
a little
give
bit
me the most.
different. Do
Hey,
you have
give
a
me the most.
job, or do you have to go out and hunter gatherer?
Hey,
Uh,
give me the most jacked up situation you can think of, and I'll tell you
well,
how I think a stoic would deal with it.
Well, hold on a second. Let me spell this out real quick. It's not everyone really knows Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mhm.
Um, the third step there is effectively community, right? Which most of us are lacking right now. Which is like just a loving community that accepts us for who we are, regardless of like, again, if you're squawking with your right wing or you're squawking with your left wing, man, you're still that freaking bird, man. And like, hey, I see you. And we have a hard time saying that. The fourth level is effectively a self of respect, a respect for others, right? A respect for our position, right? Maybe within that group, we're not just a part of, right, that community, but we actually hold a position and we feel that because of the position we hold, like there's value there. So we're really kind of seeing ourselves there. And then do that apex, man, is self actualization. It's really no different than breathing life into the world,
I get
which
that. I get Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but
mhm,
I think like the thing that I like about, or kind of, and like I say, I'm new into the stoicism thing. This has only been like a couple of months,
sure.
okay? So I'm still learning, right?
Well,
But
and we're not here to be
like
like
I say, the thing I like
the
about
best. Yeah,
stoicism is that the world could be falling to pieces around me. My family could be going into chaos and everything else, right? Stoicism is all about how I deal with that.
sure.
You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
and you've been
Deal
a
with that.
stoic for your whole life. You just only understood the philosophy recently.
Right. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because, it's that I create my own happiness. I don't need anything else to create my happiness. Yes, it can make my life better, but Stoicism teaches you to find happiness within yourself.
Right.
So, in a sense, I don't need the hierarchy because I am the hierarchy in my own self. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
if I need community, well, if the community around me disappears, my happiness shouldn't be rooted in anything external to myself. It shouldn't be now
an
all those
internal
other things
locus
can
of
benefit and add to it, but it shouldn't be rooted in anything outside of my control. And the only thing with really within my control until Alzheimer's set in is my mind.
mm,
Because I'm an artist, right? I can draw my ass off, right? But if I lose my right arm, and if my art is the stake, is what I stake my happiness in. If I lose my right arm, there goes my happiness.
right. Because that's the only way in which I can conceive of happiness.
Right.
Right.
So you see where I get at and so kind of when you get to that level or to this point to me, a whole lot of other things become irrelevant.
And
I
so
mean,
what
not to say that they're not important.
so building upon that though, like, there's irrelevance. And so like, what do you think within your kind of what you've seen as just bullshit? What do you think would be a good, meaningful way to build a bridge to somebody who disagrees with you politically, or culturally, in order to just say like, dude, I'm your friend, man. Let's
All
talk.
right, I'll put it to you like this, right? Say the whole thing with the Trump fans, with Trump. I'm probably more Republican than I am Democrat,
Sure,
just
dude.
because
I'm a
just
registered
because
Republican.
I think Democrats is the party of the prey.
Mm,
That if we were all animals in Africa, all the prey animals, I mean all of the prey animals would be Democrats.
I don't know that I disagree with that, but yeah, I'll okay. So
I'm
keep
just saying.
going.
I'm just saying. Generally speaking, from no, and I say that from the layman's terms. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, dude,
To the
I would
to the
I
average American, because a lot of us are just a lot of us are just sheep going with whomever. You know, and I
sure.
think anybody who considers themselves a free thinker wouldn't push anybody toward any political ideology.
Well, and then now let's take a step over to say just because you're a carnivore doesn't necessarily mean that you're not rabid when you think that you're a free thinker, right? That you actually have a
Right,
virus that's controlling your
right,
thoughts.
right.
And you're like, well, bro, well, look at me. I'm a free thinker. I just think exactly what they think, right? Well, this virus is telling me to think.
It's like I'll tell you this, man. I'm gonna let you in something on something very, very intimate. Okay, very intimate. My 13-year-old daughter says she's a lesbian, right? And on her TikTok, it says, lesbian, LGBTQ plus friendly, blah blah blah. And I'm at my wife, and I'm like, why? And she's like, kids are exploring, blah blah blah. No, 13-year-olds shouldn't have a personality or a sexual identity. Because when you put that out there, you can't hear a 13-year-old talk about their sexual preference without imagining or thinking about a sexual, that
You're a
13-year-old
13-year.
performing that sexual act.
Mm. So the
So when
fact
you
of putting
lead with
yourself
that,
out there is kind
right,
of and
right, and
conceiving it
so
is actually conceiving the sin itself too. They just
right,
kind of yeah,
right, and so there are predators out there, that there are people lurking, that's their nature. You
sure.
can't do anything to change it. It is nature. And you walk out there with this big flag when it doesn't matter, when most people don't give a fuck.
Now, if you were
Like
prey,
with my daughter, what I'm saying? My wife is like, blah, blah, blah. It's like you don't give a fuck. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. To be honest, I really don't want to talk about my 13-year-old daughter. And,
yo,
I was
well,
like,
you
I
do give
don't,
a fuck. Well, look at you right now. So let's go
but you know
ahead
what I
and
mean. But
so
I
no
mean,
no 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 no. This is
I'm not
important, man.
saying
And the
that.
reason why I say it's important is because we say these words as if they have no meaning. I don't give a fuck. Well, obviously you do, man. Right. And I'm
No,
not trying to like get in your face about it, but it's like, let's actually take a step back and like again, stoic, like, hey, what does that mean? I just said something that my actions just betrayed me the second
no,
that I said them. And so obviously I care, right? I'm saying this, I don't give a fuck in the way in which I expect you to receive it. But is that a way of which me trying to mask myself and to protect myself? Or is this actually a way
no.
for me to try? And so we also mask ourselves in these weird obscure dances, man, as we kind of,
No,
again,
because I'll tell you what.
have these
I'll tell you more
conversations.
background, right? Here's more background, because it's kind of like that this is the new society where kids are exploring and are freer with their sexuality at a younger age,
Yep.
and I call bullshit, because you already have people who are trying to normalize child predation
Yeah. Well,
as
we've
an
had plenty
actual
of
movement
sexually
of,
free, right,
but
generations.
well, then but sexual freedom. I thought that's what the whole thing about being 18 was to protect kids. You
Well,
know what
and
I
then
mean?
also like,
And so for my wife, I said it's the same thing with my son. When he starts, I don't want to, like if you like say with my daughter, if she said, oh, blah blah blah, like I kissed her, or whatever. I'm like, all right, that's cool. But I'm not the type of parent to sit around and talk about details of my children's intimacy.
bro, right? I mean, maybe
Does
with
that
them,
does that make
right? Look, like we like it. Look, this is what I understand, right? This is a personal conversation with them, but yeah, dude, there's a lot of absurdity and a lot of just kind of vulgar graphic nature of the way that we are incredibly open with what we expect others not only to do but expect of us. um and we feel like in order to like fly this flag of like acceptance, like, hey, we're here, look at us, we're going to plant this flag instead of Iwo Jima, that we stand for something. We're here to say that, hey, we accept you, and yet we find ourselves in a place where we're compromising everything that we stand for, man. So it's the literal exact opposite of Iwo Jima, man. Iwo Jima was standing for a fucking principle, dude.
And that's what I,
And
you know,
here it
and
is, you're
so,
flying a flag and you're sinking.
right,
What
and,
good
you
is
know, and
flying a
so,
flag if you're sinking?
you know, and kind of, and so through Stoicism, you know, because like the four virtues are wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. So, you know, that whole, the, what is it, that prayer about the wisdom to know the difference and all that shit,
Yeah, yeah,
that actually came from Seneca.
sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's an actual stoic from Seneca, one of the earliest Stoics.
Well, sure, man. Well, Jesus
And,
was also born from Dionysus, right?
right.
Yeah,
And
and you
so,
know his yeah, the where the
but
typical, right, the church where you hear about how he turned the water into wine, right? This was also a way for the Greeks at the times in the area to feel like, hey, there's this new God who I feel safe to talk about. Um, and look at that. He does all these same cool things that Dionysus did.
like I say, I just think, you know, my thing about Stoicism is that it's religious because it only focuses on you. It tells you to put your, not necessarily to put your faith to say as in, you know, don't consider a higher power, but it says as far as staking your happiness and
Yeah,
your long-term tranquility, put that in the things you control. And the only thing you can control is your intent and the true intent of the actions you perform, right? And then the way you perceive and carry through on the actions of others. You know, somebody cuts me
yeah,
off in traffic. Do I just throw the finger back and cuss him back? Or can I just say, hey, you know what? It is what it is. Because he's in a rush. For whatever reason,
sure. Well,
he's in
dude,
a rush.
what I do is
I do
dude,
not
I
have
talk
to respond
mad
in
shit.
kind.
I talk mad shit in traffic, and then I talk shit on myself because I do the
Mhm.
same thing. And so then it's a great time for me to remind myself of in my, there's still going to be a part of me that's high strung, right? And I need to be
Right,
aware of that.
right.
Um,
You know,
and
yesterday,
in that, and allow myself to express that high strung nature, but also create a feedback loop that can also remind me of the dangers of it, and also, but ground me in the fact that, like, hey, I'm no different than that dude. And so instead of getting angry, be like, oh, that's
y'all need
right.
some help?
Sins of the world. Take the sins of the world upon, right?
Maybe. Yeah,
Maybe.
I'll look. I was talking to my neighbor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I don't know.
All right, man. Well, I think that we're petering off. I think we've
No,
had a
no, no,
pretty
no. It's just
awesome
my
conversation.
neighbor caught my attention.
Oh,
No,
okay.
you're good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm back. I'm back. I don't know, man. I just look at it and just, if this, I just refuse to put I don't want to just say stake my happiness, but I'll tell you what, a couple of days ago, this is just to let you know, a couple of days ago, I got into this heated discussion with these creators of this YouTube channel, all right? Because they commented on this thing and I felt they left out a crucial detail that would have gave a better picture, you know, a more complete picture of what was going on.
Sure.
Um, and I went there with the intent to actually just offer constructive criticism.
Hmm.
Well, but I offered it in a way that pissed these dudes off.
Of course, dude. I mean, we're imperfect.
Right. You
uh,
know,
you- yeah,
but to be honest though, originally I was coming from the goodness of my heart.
sure.
Yeah. But
Hey,
I
path to
felt that
hell is
these
paved
dudes,
with good intentions,
you know,
man.
it's like, dude, you can't talk about somebody and then fail to mention whether or not this person is currently or not currently employed in the organization. You know, it's just this big overall story.
Hmm.
But that these two little words or a few little words would have made a huge difference and made the story a whole lot better. And so I offered them that criticism. They didn't like it, right? And so that's just long back and
We're
forth.
having none of it.
And like me, man, I can be an asshole, right?
Sure.
So it's like, dude, I was just offering, just blah, blah, blah. I was actually a fan of the video. I even said I'd like, subscribe, and I would fucking be one of those people who send you money every
Dude,
month.
I'm a
Just like, and
supporter. I want you to be
yeah,
better. I
yeah,
want
I
your
want
I
you to be
want you to
better.
have the most defensible argument that you can have.
Right. And that's what I was basically trying to say is, dude, I'm trying to,
I'm not perfect, Dathan. How
yeah,
dare
yeah.
you?
If you don't like it, you can go watch somebody else or make your own
Yeah, you
YouTube.
must
But
be
go,
some right-wing Chad.
yeah,
Get out of
yeah.
here.
And that's what he's saying. Like, if you don't like, if you, he's like, if you're all concerned about journalistic credibility, go to CNN or Fox. He's like, I'm
Oh
not
my
a
god.
journalist. I'm a YouTuber. And I said, see,
Yeah.
that's the problem. That is the problem. I said, you get paid to talk about events or people. You are a
Mm,
and you have a responsibility, whether you want to or not. And saying
right.
that you felt it wasn't impactful to the story makes a difference. And
Right.
so when you say, I hate when black men think I'm something, something, or whatever, because I don't know nothing about basketball. Now I take offense to it because you think I'm just some dumbass nigga who only knows something about basketball. When
Well,
actually I'm trying to tell you about being a better journalist. And I know a little bit about something about journalism and PR and all of that shit just because of whatever. And
well,
so
your life
anyway,
experience, man. Maybe we've got something.
so but
Well,
it's this long drawn out thing, right? And so,
sometimes
and like
being
I
an
said, I gotta
asshole
be
is a manner in which we're on our own way. I
right. But see,
certainly
that
have
was my
fallen
pride.
victim to
But
that.
that was my pride. That was my pride getting in the way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like I went in a rabbit hole. Like I was like, oh wait a minute. I went and looked at the little about. Oh wait a minute. You've been
Don't you
in.
know that I was trying to be good to you, motherfucker? How come you
No, but
didn't
I
take my
wasn't like that.
motherfucking
No,
advice?
it wasn't that. It wasn't that. But when this dude said, "Dude, trust me, I know what I'm doing." Okay, I went to his about. Oh, dude, you've had this page for almost 5 years, and you don't even have 10,000 total views. Oh, dude, I fucking sunk in. But then I thought about it. I woke up the next morning. I went back. I sent them a message. I said, "My bad, fellas." I said, "Believe it or not, I came there not to be a troll, whatever, whatever. My pride got in the way." I said, "I knew I should have structured my comment better, but I chose not to." So I still stuck a jab back in there. He said,
So you gave
because
him
he
a
said,
you reached out with like this forked freaking olive branch that like poked him in the eye and you gave
"Yep,
him an olive branch. Oh my gosh.
but because he said he chose not to be better
Yeah.
and not to do better."
But how could you not want to poke him in the eye? Yeah.
Right. Because he
Yeah,
said
I
he
get it.
chose not to do, and that's what I was getting at, dude. It's like, you know better, do
Mm,
better,
yeah.
but you chose not to. And so then that's when I kind of sunk that little message back in. I knew I should have structured that in a different way to be less offending, but I knew better.
Yeah. 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 And
I
so,
said I
well,
knew better and I didn't do it or whatever.
yeah, whatever. And no, I understood what you're saying. And well, and therein lies again, we get in our own way. Sometimes it's a matter of articulating our argument. Sometimes it's a matter of like we're assholes when we don't need to be. Um, but it's also important, man. You know,
Yeah, but I did that. I did that though to restore my own peace of mind, my own inner tranquility,
well, and
because
like, you know,
it was
on a
fucking with me, and I
radically
had to do
different
something about it.
on a radically different scale, right? Where people are probably finding a lot of solace within, you know, again, pandemic world is online gaming, right? I did a lot of World of Warcraft, you know, Shadowlands, right? Giving up Shadowlands. Um, and so like you'll find people kind of navigating that space as well, trying to figure out like, dude, who am I? Like, you know, and who am I within this space? Um, and when you are trying to figure out who you are, you can't help it often be an asshole. And you don't know what hills you're supposed to die on. That's not always a bad thing. Maybe somebody told you something, right? So for instance, you know, I was, you know, often I was a tank. So I'd be in charge, I'd be, you know, the person who's responsible for basically making sure that everything is running smoothly. Somebody says, bro, you suck. Yeah, that's gonna hurt my feelings. Yeah, get out of here, trash. Well, you know what? If I have any sort of introspection, it's probably gonna land, man. And it's gonna gnaw at me. Man, what an asshole. Well, you know what? Let's see where that goes.
Why?
Why is it that some random asshole's comment isn't just kind of water off my back? Why is it landing? What is it? Maybe because there's some truth. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. right? Maybe, oh crap, I'm not as good as I think I am. Shit.
Those are humble pie.
Yep.
And I think the world could use a little more of assertive communication.
Yeah.
Which covers active listening and and all of those things, and in terms of conflict resolution, assertive communication to ask, you know, questions with specific purposes.
Hmm.
To explore the why something happened, or the why I said what I said, or the way why I behaved what I behaved. But I
Sure.
think but then again, in there relies a certain level of emotional security people got to have, because if we explore and we go through and we explore all these feelings just for you to find a deeper level of self-pity to wallow in, what's the fucking point?
What's the point, dude? So you
As
found
human,
a new pit of hell to
right,
despair and wallow
right,
in. Woo! Right.
right. So that's why I say, God endowed us with this ability for a reason, and apply rationale for us to make our lives miserable. Because we spend so much time exploring feelings and all this stuff and never doing anything about it, and exploring feelings with the wrong intent. Because a
So
lot of people will explore feelings to find out the problem, to get to the root cause, but then don't want to take action. And
I love
therein lies victimhood, because it means that, oh shit, I could either continue to be the problem and benefit by being the problem, or I can, make whatever changes necessary. I may not benefit as much, but mankind or my neighbors or whoever will all
sure.
benefit.
Yeah. Well, so let me share with you kind of where I am and the journey that I've been on. So, right, you and I, combat veterans, you've certainly seen far more combat than I have. Um, within my experiences, within my high strung nature, right, combat hit me from like the day I was born, man. I didn't I didn't realize that until now. Part of what helped me separate that out, believe it or not, is ketamine therapy. If you have, especially if you know any veterans and there's any sort of like ketamine therapy,
My
dude, I
sister-in-law,
dude,
my sister,
so highly recommend it. And
I'm
so
thankful I don't need it.
yeah, well, you don't necessarily need it, and I'm not saying that do need it, but there are people,
No, no,
and
no, no. I'm counting my blessings.
yeah, well, the thing is that I didn't need it either. I found out about it. And so here's what I learned about ketamine is that people are using ketamine to go fix themselves because they have an anchor in time, some sort of beacon in time of who they were, a shadow, a link to the past that they need to go back and they need to redeem. Um, Dude, I've dealt with my demons. I am my demons, right? I'm not alienating my demons, right? I'm my angels and my demons.
We we
Um, and
we
and
we are our biggest obstacle. We are our biggest challenge.
and so if I don't have a person in the past to go redeem, but my past itself, how do I redeem my past if not through the future? And so the people who are propelling themselves in the past, going from a 0 to -10, in order to redeem themselves, I immediately was like, well, what if I use this ketamine therapy to make myself better? What if instead of going from 0 to -10, I take that exact same amount of propulsion and go from 0 to 10? Again, what does this world look like if I stop doing the things that purposely make my life harder? I start focusing on the things that make my life better, not easier, make my life better, you know, give my life more meaning, give me a more spiritual grounding, allow me to, as life tries to squash me, well, that also creates heat. And that heat, by God, creates a spark. And that spark is what ignites a star, man. And Nietzsche himself, right? And he's somebody who I've, really explored and meditated on while tripping balls on ketamine. And the idea of the Ubermensch of, who am I? I'm this guy who often is, been just completely bewildered by his place in the world, wanting to do good without any idea of how to do good. And so the only thing I can do is virtue signal until it lands. And if it starts to land, then I'll see where it goes. And now I started to understand, like, hey, there's more to life than just that. And so the ketamine brought me into a place where I explored the deepest parts of who I am. um, and the path of the Ubermensch that Nietzsche explores. I read Thus Spoke Zarathustra when I was 18, and it talks about a guy who had to effectively separate himself from civilization. He had to go away into the wilderness, had to separate his consciousness out itself out from what it is that the culture demands of him. The culture is now a manifestation of what they effectively call the dragon. When there's people who want to help the world and do good in the world, they usually are conceptualized as a camel. And the camel is like, who is so noble that would then, come to me, bend the knee, and say, may I share your burdens? Go ahead and stack your burdens on top of me. I've got broad shoulders. I'll certainly carry it. But like, there's no end, man. There's like the entire world has nothing but burdens. And so
Can I,
if you lend yourself to nothing but the world's burdens, you're going to collapse because you leave yourself to you don't allow yourself to tend to your own. And then that then leads to, so when the dragon culture says you need to obey, the camel says, okay, all right, man, I'm a good guy. Well, then that leads to the second phase, which is the lion. The lion, when the dragon says you will obey, the lion says bullshit. And therein lies has been most of my life, of me thinking that being a lion and like strut my balls around, right? Look at me, I can roar at the world, as if that necessarily means anything. And it kind of does, in the sense that I'm starting to separate myself and see like what the world demands of me and who I actually am. Until I'm ready to actually grab that wheel, it's nothing but potential. So it's not like it's devalued, right? There's still inherent value in seeing what it is that I'm building. Hold on real quick. All right, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Okay. And so there's still inherent value in seeing that lion phase. Well, after the lion phase of like, go fuck yourself, you dragon culture, you've then effectively got the child phase. And what is it? You've got a 2-year-old, right? Other than when a kid needs to be fed, when their diaper is gross, chances are they're probably pretty happy. If they're building and they're playing and things don't go the way that they expect, well, then they'll just keep building and playing.
I know everybody says this, but my 2-year-old is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that's why we're supposed to have kids. They're supposed to remind us of what was important. And this is part of the Ubermensch. The Ubermensch is not like you're physically superior, is that you're psychologically superior. And like that of a child, right? When the world, right, is demanding, right? Like, look at me. What did you say? Dude, I don't give a fuck. I totally respect that you've got an opinion. Why do I have to care about it?
Yeah, like my wife and I, we got into a pretty heated thing, and she was like, I just never know what you're thinking, and I was like, stop worrying about what I'm thinking because I don't even know. Focus on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Focus on what I'm doing. The way
Yep.
I treat you, the way I treat
Yep.
our kids and I raise
Yep.
our kids. That's what's important. I say, we people, human beings, need to stop worrying about what the fuck people are thinking and what they're doing because that is who they are.
Right. Your actions predicate, right, your
And
thoughts.
even if somebody is doing something with ulterior motives, we have no control over that.
Well, and the actions will likely betray those ulterior motives at some point.
But as long
And
as
so if
you're
you're if
coming
you're in
from,
the if you're in the moment and you're present, dude, you're probably gonna see it.
right, like I have friends, right? A couple of friends, just a couple, just a handful. And, I don't talk to my friends every day. I got one that I see just about every day. But if you're my friend and you need something, I'm giving it to you. And if you turn
Sure.
around and betray me, then it is what it is.
Yeah.
I won't mess with you anymore.
I opened the door for a lady with an
Right.
armful of groceries because it was a good to do. Right.
Right. And she slammed the door in my face. Okay, well, the universe, she will get hers in the end.
Yeah.
Because check this out, dude. When I was in SLC, I was in E7, going to that course between E6 and E7.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was the very first student, first sergeant they had, right? Anyway, my platoon was also the first platoon that had to raise the flag every morning for Fort Sam and take it down, right?
Nice.
I didn't know that as a student first sergeant, I still needed to be there when my platoon was there,
Whoops.
right? So I went out and partied, whatever. Needless to say, that morning I wasn't there, right? That afternoon I was there. And then that Sunday morning I was there. And that Sunday afternoon I was there. But Monday morning, one of the cadre came up and was like, yeah, we got to give you a negative counseling. And I was like, for what? And having that negative counseling automatically takes me off commandant's list. No matter what I did from there on, I couldn't get commandant's list, right?
What? That sucks.
Right. And so, but at this time, I'm TDY from Germany. So there's the whole time swap jet lag thing, right? The cadre was asking me, he's like, so why were you late? I was like, man, I didn't know I had to be there, to be honest. He's like, yeah, you blah, blah, blah. I was like, to be honest, I did not know that I had to be there. I was there the other 3 times. I just wasn't there Saturday morning because I went out and partied. And I was like, I'm not going.
Yeah.
But he was like, are you sure it wasn't the jet lag and blah, blah, blah.
So they were trying to give you every out and every.
Right. And I was like, no. I didn't think I had to be there, but if you said I had to be there and I wasn't there, it is what it is. Give me the negative counseling, right? So I got the negative counseling, right? But check this out. The weekend before we graduated, we all went out. We were at this club, right? I got into a fight. Well, I went to ask a group of Mexicans for a cigarette lighter. And then this drunk Mexican girl starts hitting me out of nowhere. You know me, dude. You know me. I'm not a disrespectful person. I don't move. Say, bitch, what's up? You know, yeah, you know me. That ain't how I move.
Oh my god, dude, that's insane. Yeah. So hold on. So
anyway,
you're
wait.
I need you to take a step back.
No,
I need to know how this unfolded, dude. You just jumped.
That's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to, right?
Yeah.
So in the midst of this girl hits me and all this other stuff. Her friend pulls her off. I go back by my homeboys, right?
No, hold on. You're already, dude. You're on third base, dude. I don't even know how you even got up to plate.
All right, where you lost? This story comes full circle. Like it comes full circle. Trust me.
Okay.
All right.
Keep going.
This has to do with me missing the flag.
Okay.
Okay. To me, it does. All right. So needless to say, one of the dudes I'm with pulls out a gun because we're about to get mobbed by these Mexicans, right?
As you're getting punched in the face by this lady.
No, but check this out. Check this out, right? So they broke up the fight with me and the girls. I'm back by my buddies. This chick broke my glasses, so I'm looking at my glasses, and I'm standing by my homeboys. This one random stray dude comes up. He's like, dude, that's fucked up. If you want to call the police or whatever, I'm right here. I saw everything. And I'm like, nah, man, I'm good. And this fucker hits me in the eye and takes off running. So I'm chasing this dude, and then I heard freeze, and I look up and I see San Antonio PD with their gun out.
Whoa!
I'm like, holy fuck! So I'm laying down, and he's like, all of this shit. It comes to find out, one of the dudes that I was with had his own personal gun because they were getting swarmed by these Mexicans. Anyway, the cop lets us go. It doesn't go on paper, doesn't hit the blotter, nothing, right? Only thing I can think of is if I would have took the easy way out, that scene wouldn't have turned out the way it turned out.
Interesting. Yeah, there may have been some bloodshed, and by you,
or I would have lost my career or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, but it was a near miss.
That's interesting. Well, and so Socrates talked about how he had an internal voice that when, and this is very reminiscent of that, right? When he was in the, prison in Athens, like they're like, look, are you sure? Are you absolutely sure you don't want to run away? Are you sure, wink, 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 that you don't want to run away? Like, the door's not closed. Right? The door's not closed. Door's not closed. You can go. But he had an internal voice that said, well, look, man, I'm pretty old. I've lived a pretty good life. I can either stand for what I say I stand for, or I don't. And I can be a better person by listening to this voice, right? This inner Jiminy Cricket. Um, and he did.
And that's
And
and that's what and that's what and that's what I think the ancient philosophers mean when they say going against nature. You know what I mean? Like if I wouldn't have accepted the consequences of my actions and took the easy way out, that would have been going against nature.
Mhm.
And nature would have caught up with my ass in the end. But
but
since I
by
went
you, but by
against,
you like actually shouldering that responsibility and not trying to dodge it, man, you immediately you immediately saw that kind of, maybe you see a karmic backlash, right? But
and
in
I
your
didn't know it
favor,
then.
in your favor, yeah.
Right. I didn't know that then. The
Of
dots were
course.
still being
How
put
like
down.
of course we can't, dude. If there really is a cosmic balance, dude, we're agents within a cosmic, like
Yeah.
there's no way that we're going to be able to separate ourselves, right? I mean, we barely even know how to like keep our own lives like in
Right.
line, let alone like where we are within the cosmic balance.
And so if there's an example of good karma, that's got to be it. If there's an example of the miracle of Christ, that has got to be it. Something as small and as insignificant as that, if you recognize it, that's a miracle. Given
Well,
the day and age,
dude,
given
by
today and today's
sacrificing
societies,
and
but I'm
seeing
just
that
saying,
which you're most afraid of, which is being held accountable to your actions. So, you know what,
right,
my bad, dude.
right. But I mean, you just think that today's society with black people and the cops, that's a miracle.
Yeah, man.
Not only that, I escaped unharmed, other than some broken glasses and a scratched eye.
Mm,
It didn't get put on paper. I didn't suffer in my career at all. You know what I mean? It was a
that,
complete near miss. That is a fucking miracle.
that is a miracle.
You know. And how did I pay into that? If I accept any responsibility to make me act in a way that would perpetuate more miracles?
If you were given this goodness, how can you then take this goodness and
Well,
give
not
it to
only that, but
others?
if I was given this goodness, what did I do to earn it?
Is that
I
well?
took the hard right over
Mm,
the easy wrong.
well, and if you were able to then recreate that goodness in a certain capacity and give it to others, maybe that's just a matter of you showing people how they can kind of shoulder their responsibility. Is that really any different than Jesus saying that, like, in my name, you can do as much or more, right,
Right.
of these
But yeah,
miracles?
and I get that. But a lot of people just the minute you say Jesus, they turn off and they flip the channels.
I know, but you and I have already been talking about like Jesus. You don't even
Right.
need to talk about like Jesus as far as again, whether Jesus is this mystical, divine,
If he helps you be a better
heteronormative,
person,
or
if he helps
normal,
you be if
white
he helps
dude.
you be a better if he helps you be a better person, I'm all for it.
Dude,
But
yeah, exactly,
I
man.
don't have to subscribe to that, and that
Sure.
shouldn't be a problem. And
Well, and
that
the
I
thing
think
is,
that's the issue.
Jesus for me again is just coming back to for me again. Doesn't need to be for you. Is
Right.
it, Jesus is the archetype of again the King of Kings, the highest ideal that I can be, that effectively pulls me at every, so gravity pushes in at you at every, so it's kind of compelling you to be crushed. Well, what if Jesus is as the reverse, right? It's the inspiration pulling me at every level. So I'm completely, well-rounded, right? So that's what makes things round is gravity, right? So I'm well-rounded in the exact same way because I'm pulled at every facet because it's hyper real, right? Because
Right.
this perfection that I don't, I mean, the hell do I know about perfection, man? What dude, right? I'm an
So the only
imperfect.
thing we can do perfect, the only thing we can do perfect is intend to do good.
Yeah, is yeah,
Because
the
and that's why I say intent, because just because we intend to do well doesn't mean it's the impact of it may be
sure.
received.
As we discussed, right? Maybe you're an asshole and you completely, right? Maybe
No, no,
you do
no,
have
no,
a
no, no.
gift.
That's not what I mean. That's not
Come on,
what I
go ahead.
mean. So say I open the door for that same woman and she says, what? I don't need a man to open my door. Impact versus intent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
She thought I was an asshole. I have no control over that. You
sure.
know what I'm saying?
You still gave the goodness to the world,
Right,
and
right. And that's the and,
you don't need to take her, because again
right,
that's her chaos
right,
disrupting your peace, and you don't need that.
right. Right. And my intent was of a true nature. And that's the only thing that I can't control in this
Right.
whole crazy ass world And
And
I
you know the
think that is,
best part about that though is that chances are, even though you'll never see it, right? And it doesn't make the headlines, chances are if that happened and you actually had a pure intent, you're just gonna let it roll off your shoulders and it's gonna eat her alive. And she's gonna not be able, and so because we know when we're not our best selves.
and you know why I would eat her alive? Because she wouldn't have the wherewithal to say, you know what, I can't go back and apologize to that man because I'll never see him again. But the next
Well,
time, and every time from there on, somebody opens a door, I would look them in the eye and,
you would
kindly say,
hope. You would
you would
hope.
hope. But
That
I'm
that's
just saying,
maybe
though,
that
what I'm
might
saying,
be a little too Pollyanna to look
no,
at, but you would hope.
but what I'm saying though is, but that's what it takes to not eat away with her
Sure.
at her because she wouldn't have the
But you
wherewithal.
have to again be able to
Right.
accept onto you the sins of the world. And again, this is where, right, this sort of biblical iconography and philosophy makes a lot of sense, even as a secular dude. And it seems like there's a lot of parallels within Stoicism. Not that I'm by any means like the, a proponent of Stoic philosophy. I certainly have engaged with it. I like what I've heard, but
I'll link you a couple of audiobooks
nice. That'll be
because
cool.
my ADD won't let me read, but
Yeah.
I could throw on the earphones and knock out some chores and meditate.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Yeah, I've speaking of meditating, man, I've been recently I bought a gym membership. In fact, this is I got it on the first of this month. I started going to the sauna and the steam room, man. And so like, I started watching Joe Rogan, many years ago, and he's brought me onto a investigative journalist around breathing, James Nestor. And that path, dude, just something as fundamental. Again, we talked about first principles. Something as fundamental as breathing, and how that can center you. Well, now here I am. I've heard, again through Joe Rogan, right? Dr. Rhonda Patrick talks about if you're in a sauna, it creates heat shock proteins. Not only does that help me keep my sexy complexion, but it also makes you stronger, makes you more resilient. It makes you healthier. And then I can also go in there and get my psychological strength because I can be pounded on by these huge forces of just heat, just like, oh my God. And what I do is I focus on my breathing. And so that I can go and meditate in this place,
Kind of good.
making my body much stronger. That's literally all I do. I just focus on my breathing, in 4, out 6, it's kind of
Can I
10.
interject? Can I interject?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah. Go ahead.
everything you describe is kind of like part of where relies my problem with kind of organized religion
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
because it removes spirituality in the sense that all those things you just described, none of that stuff you hear about in the Bible.
I know.
Those things, what I'm saying? And it's kind of like it tells you to lay all your burdens on Christ, but it never kind of teaches or lays the foundation or the pathway, so to speak, for people to problem solve and figure out where that connection, where they make the blessings happen that Christ has bestowed upon them. You know what I mean? Does
Sure,
that
man.
make
Well, if the
like
thing is if you have
one
the
thing to say,
ability,
just take it to the altar, take it to the altar, take it to the altar. But no, you can actually do some of this stuff. You just got to change the way you think. And here's a concrete way to do that. You know what I mean? I think it's just so much of it is magical and mythical that that it takes a shepherd who is able to translate that into concrete, tangible 22nd century ways for people to understand. Like
well,
you and I can do this. You and I can dialogue this and take scenarios from the Bible, and I can take further philosophies and draw the parallels and make it all make sense together. Where if you're just focusing on Christianity alone, leaves a lot of loopholes, a lot to be misinterpreted. But when you attach it to some of the things that it was born of, it makes a lot
spirit,
more
right? And again, if you look at like these religious texts,
Christianity. Like it just didn't blow up out of the soil. You know
yeah,
what I'm
man.
saying? Right. But in the process, it's like Christianity is the roof. but they never talk about the foundations and the things that really drove Christianity. All those ancient philosophies, from Socrates and the people before him, that you find their messages in the Bible that predate the Bible, but their messages are in the Bible, but it never, does it make sense?
Yeah, man. Well, and then what is the foundation other than that which makes you stronger as well as that which you're trying to bury,
Right.
right? And so, and if you look at
Because
if
I
you
say all
actually
that to
look at
say
the
the Bible
spirit
doesn't
of,
make sense to me, but I will listen to Socrates and Nietzsche, and I will listen to people read those guys' words all day long and soak up every bit because it all makes sense.
sure,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But I still believe in God, if that makes
Well,
sense.
yeah,
I
dude, that
still
makes perfect sense. And the thing is because again, as
believe in
you did,
Jesus thing.
well, and as we've had this whole freaking conversation about is that um the person in the mirror is the person in the mirror. The divinity in the mirror is the divinity in the mirror. And unfortunately, that's the inescapable reality. We can try to expand our ability of what we see in that mirror, but at the end of the day, that's all that we can see.
I got a
Um,
question.
yeah.
What's the point of fasting
It
in your opinion?
so but like physiologically,
Like when people fast, like when the Catholics go through the Lent and
mhm,
all of that stuff. Like, what's the
I
point
don't
of
think
fasting?
that they understood why,
I'm
but
talking about from your
physiologically what
point of view.
happens, and you
From your
you
point
might
of view.
know this by actually talking to medical, practitioners. There's a little bit of a debate, but effectively fasting is supposed to send your body into a state of autophagy. Um, and effectively inside our bodies, we've got all this cellular goo. Proteins break down, right? That, there's cells that aren't very good at
Like,
operating.
I'll go spiritually speak.
Well, hold on a second. And so what happens there is that you then um, um, you then incorporate yourself some sort of like, you kind of threw me off, man. So you threw me off my balance. Yeah. So I lost it. I lost my train of thought. I was
Like
trying to get
fasting.
it.
What's the point of fasting? You was
Oh,
talking
so
medical.
fasting. So the autophagy. That's right. So the point of fasting. And so so before you throw me off my train of thought, um, so it does make your body stronger. What it is, all that cellular goo, the cells that are breaking down, the ones that your body is too busy at digesting food constantly because we're fat slobs constantly eating in between meals and in between chances that we're eating, we're slurping down, right? We're like a living embodiment of an oatmeal cartoon, right? I don't know if you've seen the oatmeal, but and so what it does is it gives your body a chance to then see, hey, what the F is breaking down? Oh, let's get a little bit of caulking here. Let's go and gobble that up, right? Let's go ahead and turn this back into, right, the cellular,
Purge.
well, yeah, exactly. Purge it where it should go. Let's send it down their receptacles where it should go, rather than have it just float and muck up. Because then when you have all this stuff, well, the thing is, when you have cells that are within within the plasma that are breaking down, right? Well, then they're also leaking the cytoplasma. Well, we've come to find out that, well, what happens when you have like these cytoplasm or the cytokine storms, right? And maybe I've missed terms here, and please correct me if anyone watches this afterwards. And but the cytokine storms, as I understand, and a part of, again, the reason why you want to make your body stronger and why maybe fasting is important is when you're constantly eating in between the eating and in between eating, you're creating a lot of fat. When COVID comes in, what it does is it excites your fat cells, and it causes it to crap, what was it? There's a specific cytokine that it something 6, interleukin 6, is that what it was? I can't remember. Anyway, and it effectively causes your body to attack itself. This is what causes a lot of the lung scarring. And this is why people who are obese and who have more fat are much more at risk of mortality to COVID, because this is what it does. Well, if you fast and you give your body a chance to rest and be able to see, hey, what is it that's holding me back? Well, then you give your body the internal chance to actually see, like, again, let's go back to the Bible, right? You've got Abraham and Isaac, right? Abraham was willing to sacrifice his son Isaac, not because he's this murderous, tyrannical father, but because sometimes that which you think that you love the most, stuff in your face, is exactly what's holding you back, man. And you, by God, better be willing to sacrifice it if you want to go anywhere in life.
So, all right. So, from a spiritual standpoint, I think that it's like self-inflicted hardship, right? So you go without the things that normally make your life easier.
Mm-hmm.
So, say on the point of say like going days without eating or a time of period without eating is just because it's going to cause some discomfort, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, how do you treat those around you when you're going through this discomfort?
Mm.
If you're a morning person, you're not a morning. How people say, "Give me that cup of coffee." Without a cup of
Ah,
coffee,
don't talk to
I'll kill
me.
people.
I'm not a
Right? I
worry
can kill
person.
people.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the point of fasting spiritually is without that cup of coffee, can you still be virtuous? Can you still be kind? Can you still not respond in kind when it doesn't contribute to your long-term peace?
I like that. I like that a lot. Right. And
And
so,
so you bring that over to
so
the
what would be
Bible.
your version of a spiritual fast? Like, what do you think would send your body into that spiritual autophagy to clean up all that gook that's just floating around?
Well, now the man in the mirror, the parts of myself that I'm stripping away, that I'm removing, that I don't like, because
Mhm.
you like say you have this image of perfection, right?
Sure.
And I have my image of perfection. And so what I'm doing is every day is I wake up and I say, tell God, thank you for letting me see another day. Please give me the wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, you know what I'm saying, to be virtuous. And after that, it's a minute by minute fight
Sure.
to
But it's on me. It's on me to look
it's on
within
me.
myself to be
Right,
like, hey, I
right.
chose to either let go or I chose to hold on. But you know what? Regardless, like, and the thing is that we also forget is that if we chose to hold on to our values, like, do we pat ourselves on the back at the end of the day? Or do we just forget the fact that we struggled through a malevolent world onto some pretty righteous values? Like, you know what? Maybe we should take a second and say, hey, good on you. Good job.
I do, but how I think myself is reach one, teach one. That's the reward for me. You don't have to become a stoic, but if during this conversation, during the back and forth, we've said some things it's like, you know what, man, Josh said something. I'm gonna chew on that for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, and
Or
then if I
Dathan.
do
Yeah.
right, and if I come out on the better end of it, it's like, you know what, I actually think I might try some of this. You know what I mean? That's the goal, right? To walk away with a conversation after we walk away with better men for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Iron sharpens iron. We've made each other better. Not to make you go out and conquer the world, because that means nothing if you're not a good man.
But you also need to be able to have a sharpened steel so people know to
That's
take
good.
you seriously.
Absolutely. And which comes back to you walk all the way over here to disrespect me. People are, like prison rules, You know what I mean? If you flagrantly disrespect, you get flagrantly fucked up. And that's the rules I live by in my house. If my kids get in trouble at school, where you fuck up is where you get fucked up.
Right. Well, and so we try to insulate ourselves from those sort of ramifications, right? Uh, and without that responsibility, we've got nothing but just kind of this soft, useless um personality that really doesn't help anyone, least of all ourselves, because we're so fragile. We break down at like the littlest hardship. Again, somebody tries to do something nice. Instead of even just ignoring them and be like, hey, he opened the door, I ignore them. Fuck you. I don't need a man. Or, whatever that is, right? And I know that I've been pretty, harsh on, my, obvious caricature of, these harpies. But they're certainly dudes, man. Dudes are gross. I don't think that I need to go into how gross dudes are. But dudes have their own, right? Oh my God, dudes are bad, very bad. Um, and so like, but if you can go throughout the world and give more than you take, I think that ultimately you're going to find that you're going to start to build a world that it's much easier to wake up and look at that person in the mirror and smile, which means it's easier to rest your head on your pillow at night and not have your mind just drive you crazy. Um, and if you can do that while adding an actual measurable good, it's not just because you're a dogmatist, right? Every dogmatist will be like, yeah, look at me, I'm Joel Osteen, right? I got
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars, right? I got so much money that plumbers are finding money in my walls, right? And so, but like if you're actually giving a demonstrable good to the world, and you've got that, hey, I wake up feeling great, I can tackle the world, God's on my side. God, because what does that mean? Well, God is good. Yeah. How often do you hear God is good? Well, do
Good
you
is
think
on
the
my side.
logical, yeah, do you think that the logical conclusion of God is good, all, God is good all the time, today is the day the Lord has made, and I will be, I will be glad and rejoice in it. Well, does that not then mean that wherever there is good, that God is residing? And so if good resides in the words of Seneca, in the words of Muhammad, right? Maybe coming from somewhere in Bangladesh, right? I mean, like, if it's
Yeah,
goodness
I
and I
think
walk away feeling like a better person, man, like,
I think once we learn how to, it's weird. Just we need to re-quantify things. Or we need to quantify how we value things.
mm,
Uh, because like I say, for instance, right, here I am, retired. I don't work. You know, I stay at home with my kids all day. Blah blah blah. I have my house. It is what it is. This is my castle.
sure.
Some people might look at it and say, dude, you're retired, E7, blah, blah, blah. You should be living in a $400,000 house. But then I would have to work.
Yep.
Then I would have less time for my children.
Yep.
Because, when I look at it, you think of throughout your life, how much time, the balance of work to life. How much time do you spend with your coworkers versus how much time do you spend with your family? And then of that time you spend with your family, how much it is quality? How
Mm.
much of it is not to and fro, doing the mundane chores
Yeah. How
but
much
how
is
much
just
it is actually
transactional? I want something out of
intimate,
you.
right? How much it is actually intimate, one-on-one, that true unconditional time.
I love that.
So when
Almost
you
none.
think about it, almost none,
Almost
damn
none.
near zero. And
Well,
dude,
because we don't even, dude, we don't even have that sacred spot for ourselves, dude. How are we gonna have that for somebody else?
I do. I created my piece.
Well, of course, I did too, right? I had to,
Yeah,
but I didn't have
you have
that.
to.
I didn't know it, and so I found that in books, dude. I didn't find that in Jesus, and I'm a secular kid. What do I know about Jesus? So this is again like why it was important to me, like as a secular kid who has found a path to goodness. Well, let's explore using
What is
imagery.
good?
Yeah, what is greatness? First of all, what is greatness? Let's also explore imagery that makes sense to people, right? Whether it makes you feel icky or weird
I
if
love
I
this.
if I
Dude, I
say the
love
name,
this.
right? If I say the name
I love
Jesus,
this. I
yeah,
love this.
yeah.
No, it
Uh,
doesn't bother. It doesn't bother me.
yeah, I'm just saying in general, like no matter who
Okay.
you are. But
Okay.
and so that way I can like use language that makes sense. And so that way I can explore what does greatness mean to me as I've had all this kind of Christian iconography hovering around me. I have no idea what it is, especially growing up. I'm told that God loves me as I'm getting like, as I'm seeing tyrannical demons for a mom and a stepdad, right? A dad that, can't even bother to show his face. And so like, what does that mean, right? So um, I had no person to show me what divinity was. But authors did, man. And I am a writer today. In order to hopefully that I can like give back too. Like that's why I try to also have, thoughtful ideas that just flow out of me because without the creative, the creative and protective shelter of Terry Brooks in particular. The Sword of Shannara, again, there's a reason why the Sword of Shannara comes back to my idea of greatness, right? Because it burns away that not only which we erect to keep ourselves safe, but the things that we erect to keep ourselves safe from the world are also nothing but a level of self-deception that's keeping us from facing the world as it is, because we're seeing the world only as we want it to be, where we feel safe. Well, you know what? We're not always safe, and we are vulnerable to the world. And what does it look like if we engage ourselves 100%, right, as 100% honest agents that I respect my own abilities, right? I might even be willing to give you respect that I wouldn't even normally have reserved myself, until recently, because I just didn't know what that meant, man. And so I thought that people had something that I didn't. And then once I realized that, oh, this is what it means that everyone's created in the image of God, that divinity's there, man, is waiting for you to shut the fuck up. And it takes a face full of humble pie, bro. Face full of humble pie. And then a fire. It roars a flame. It roars to life. And it can burn you or it can warm you.
I think greatness is subjective, just simply because it's so.
Of course it's subjective. I think you froze, bro. You're making a pretty awesome face right now, though. I wonder if we disconnected. Yep.